Welcome back to the Crochet Crowd as well as my friends at yarnspirations.com. Today we have an Entrelac beginner course of being able to change the size anytime that you wish. People email me and expect me to do the videos in different stitch combinations, but in actual fact you can do that on your own if you know what you're looking for. So what this is here is that there is a bigger size than normal, and usually Entrelac is done with only 7 loops on the hook, which then can be completed for a regular crochet hook because you can get 7 onto this. Anything more than that, you're going to have to switch off to an Afghan hook, just like you see. The sample that you see on camera today is 10 pins and 2 gutters. And what the hell does that mean? When I learned crochet to do this concept, I looked at it from a bowling alley perspective and realizing that normally it's 7 loops on the hook, so that would be 5 pins and 2 gutters. And I'm going to tell you what that means exactly, because once you understand this particular analogy, you're going to be able to do anything that you want when it comes to Entrelac. So let me take you to the worksheets that are downloadable on our website. See the video description for that if you wish. On the free downloadable that's available to you, we're going to look at the analogy of doing Entrelac in the round because I believe it's the easiest one of the types of Entrelac. So you can do Entrelac in rows, you can do it in rectangles, but I figured just starting with the center square is the easiest and being able to circle around. With fun yarn, I find this concept is really quite addictive, but if you get onto the same color for too long, then you might find yourself getting bored with this. So anything more than 7 loops on the hook, as I mentioned, has to go to an Afghan hook, and usually the typical number is 7 that you'll see, and we have other tutorials available on our channel. Now, if you look at it from a bowling alley perspective, just like I put here, is that you're going to have the number of pins, and the number of pins equals the number of stitches between the gutters. So we have gutters that are on both sides. So it's the number of pins that will dictate the number of rows that we need to complete when we're doing this. So if I have a different combination of pins and gutters, it's going to change the analogy for this. And so I have that for you on the next sheet. So on the next sheet, you're going to see 2 sets of pins. So when you start your center square, you're going to have the number of loops. So if there were 7 loops on the hook, like it normally would be, is that there will be a gutter on both sides and 5 pins. 5 pins is the representation of the number of rows that it will take in order to complete the cycle. So if you have 7 loops on the hook and 2 of them are gutters, there's only 5 pins left, so that means that there's 5 rows. If you look at the one I just showed you, it was the 10 pins, and what we have here is that there's 12 loops on the hook in order to do that because there is gutters in play, just like that. We also then, if you look at it even more, is that if you wanted 20 pins, so 20 rows, just like you see there, that you'll have to have 22 loops. So you can change the size. So maybe you wanted 25 rows, then if you do it with this analogy, if you want 25 rows, therefore you'll need 25 pins plus 2. So you would need a total of 27 loops on the hook in order to make that happen. So it'll allow you to change the size that you would like to do. And even if you're doing the reduction at the very end of this, it'll still work out when you're doing the flat edging of this concept. So what does this mean right here? Let's go through that. After the first square is completed, we have the gutters on both sides, but everything else from that will always connect to a neighbor. And so instead of the gutter being on this side, it's still there, but it's being connected to an existing square. So if you have 7 loops on the hook, you're going to have 1 gutter, 5 pins, and then this is the connection spot that you'll create. So you'll still have 7 loops on the hook. So if you had the 12 loops on the hook when you did the center square, you'll still have 12 loops, but this one here is connecting to its neighbor. And so when you look at it from this perspective like this, is that you just have to remember that the last loop is the one that is connecting to an existing square. So there are officially different kinds of squares that are being used within this particular concept. And the different kinds of squares are going to be the main square, the center square, and the side square. So the main square is the center. The corner square is just where the corners are going to hit, and the side squares are filling in the spaces between the corners. So I have for you a schematic on the last page to demonstrate this. So here would be the main square that you would start, And then once you're ready to go on to the next round, you'll start right in a corner. It doesn't matter which corner that you start with the main square, but what you'll have to do is you'll have to chain the number in order to get yourself here. And then by the time you're done the square, you end up back at this point right here. What a terrible marker to be using today. So we're gonna end up right back here, right here at this connection spot. So we start here and then we end up out there. The number of chain count that you're going to do is the beginning chain count minus 1. So if, for example, it was we had a chain count of 12 that was starting with the beginning main square, this chain count would then be 11. So when you start a new corner, you're going to chain 11 and it'll take you out, and by the time you finish the square, you'll end up back here. And then again, you just keep on going around with the same idea. And the problem with Entrelac, which is really not a problem, is that you end up exactly where you started, but you can never do Entrelac to start a new round right where you are here. If you try slip stitching yourself to get to this point right here, you're going to notice it on the front end of the project, and it's going to look like shit. So what you would want to do is fasten off here, reconnect here, and then start again. On any of our rounds now, this is your corner square. So if you look at it from a bowling alley perspective right here, this is going to be your corner square. Whenever you hit these on here, and everything that is being filled in between is called the side square. And so you'll start off with a corner and then you'll end up with a side, but you still go in the same rotation in order to make this happen. And you'll continually then build this out. So every time you're starting a new round, you'll start off with the new corner square and then you'll fill in what is existing. Here, the black triangles here represent the finishing of the edge. And so what this is that when you're on a corner square and you have it going across and you're doing the final edge, you're just gonna slip stitch yourself across the tops of these, and you're going to fill in the spaces by doing a reduction every time you do a return pass in order to get flat. Yes, we will cover that in today's tutorial as well. So when you look at the orientation of the bowling pins, you can see how things are actually kind of upside down on this side and how it's completely opposite because we are rotating around this. So here is a real life example of the center square without any information being taken out. And so this is chaining of 7, which means that it's the 5 pins plus 2 gutters. And this is how the pattern will read. So you have chain 7 as your starting beginning chain because there's going to be 5 pins and 2 gutters. And then you're going to continue along just like you see here. And because there's only 5 pins, we end up with just 5 rows right here. So what I've done for you is that in the next few sheets, we're going to customize this, and I left spaces for you to fill in so that you can write your own pattern using the information. So let's write our own custom pattern. So let's decide the number of rows that we want to play with. So let's just say we want 30 rows just for the sake of saying 30. So then we are going to add 2 gutters to that. So we need to add 2. So we're going to have a total of 32. And so this is the loop count and the beginning chain count for the center square. So when you do the main square, we're going to chain the same number of this. So we're going to chain 32. And then we're going to fill in the blank. So I left you hints here in red. It says work across, and it's the number of loops on the hook. Hint, it's the same as the beginning chain count. So there's going to be 32 loops on the hook. So then moving down the pattern, it says for rows 2 to something is going to be this. This is the number of rows that we wanted. So we wanted 30 rows. So 2 to 30 is going to be the amount of instruction that we're going to do. So it says we're going to do this set of instruction the number of times, and it's the number of loops minus 1. So if there was 32 loops on the hook, it's going to only be repeating 31 times. And then it says loops on the hook that will remain, and it's the same as the chain count. So it'll be 32. So we've just now completed the first square. So in order to continue along, we're going to do row number 1 of the corner square, and hint, it's the beginning chain minus 1. So instead of chaining 32 like we had been, it's 32 minus 1. So we're going to be chaining 31. So just continuing to fill in the gaps. Rows number 2, this is the number of rows. We already know how many we wanted. We wanted 30, and so then you can flip the page in order to do this for yourself. So then filling it up, it says the number of times. Hint, it's the beginning chain minus 2. So this was going to be 30, because there was that was the beginning chain was 32. And then number of loops on the hook. Hint, it's the beginning chain count number minus 1. And so this will then be 31. Slip stitch in each of the next, and hint, it's the beginning chain minus 2. So we're going to say it's 30, because 32 minus 2. And then continuing to move down the pattern, it's the second round. Chain what? Hint, it's the number of chain minus 1. So the number of chain, it was going to be 31. Here, hint, it's the beginning chain minus 1. So it's going to be 31 loops on the hook, and then we're going to continue along. So continue then to row number 2. Hint, it's the beginning chain count minus 2. So it's going to be 30. So it's the number of rows. And then here it's the beginning chain minus 2. Okay, so it's going to be 30. And then number of loops on the hook. Hint, it's the beginning chain minus 1. So it's going to be 31. Continuing to the next page. For the number of loops, drop the loops. How many times? Hint, it's the number of the beginning chain minus 2. So it's going to be 30. And then this one here, hint, it's the beginning chain minus 1. So it's going to be 31. And then the number of rows, we already know, it's going to be 30. And then continuing along, here it says hint, it's the beginning chain minus 2. So it's going to be 30 times. And then hint here, it's the beginning chain minus 1. I got to make that red. And so it'll be 31. And then slip stitch in each of the next vertical bars. Hint, it's the beginning chain minus 2. So it's going to be 30. And then we just continue along. And then for the final edging that we all have, the number of loops, hint, it's the number, the beginning chain minus 2. So it'll be 30. Number of loops on the hook, hint, it's the beginning chain minus 1. So it's 31. And then we know the number of rows, it's going to be 30. And then the number of times, hint, it's the beginning chain minus 2. So it's going to be 30. And then this one here, loops on the hook, it's the beginning chain minus 1. So it's 31. So what you have now done is you've created a custom pattern that you'll be able to follow, because usually this information is all filled in and then people want custom patterns being able to be done. This is probably the easiest way to do it, is just do it yourself. So we're going to move on in the concept in order to start an example of something like this. So it's been a lot of chitter chatter. We're going to get at her with a real life example, and I'm going to use an Afghan hook that you'll see, and it is a 6.5mm size K Afghan hook, just like you have here. And I need it just to be long enough that I can get a number of stitches on board. So what I want to decide to do for myself is that I need to decide how many rows that I would like to do. So let's just say I'm going to do 12 rows. Okay, and then we need to add 2 more gutters to it. So we're going to add 2. So the secret number then would be 14. So 14 is where we're going to land. And so I'll end up with 12 rows, and then 14 is the beginning chain count. And that's where we're going to start our journey. I am going to be using Karen 1 Pound online, or on camera now. And we're going to start, and we're going to teach you how to do this concept right from the scratch. So we're going to begin with the starting chain count. In my case, I told you I wanted to do 14. So with the slip knot already on the hook, that doesn't count as 1, and you're going to chain the number that you wanted. In my case, it'll be 14. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. Remember, the shrinkage factor is about 20%. So if you think this is really a big square, it's not going to be that big. So let's move on to our instructions to begin this square. We're going to be practicing Tunisian simple stitch for this whole thing. And what we need to do is that we need to go second chain from the hook and get the back hump of the chain. You really do want the back hump because it's going to create a nice finish that you will use when you're circling around the center of the square or any of the squares. So second chain from the hook, 1 and 2, and go into the back loop only. Insert that on, yarn over, pull through, and push down the shaft. And what you're going to do is you're going to collect all of your chains that way. So you go into the next chain, yarn over, pull through, and push. It is easier for doing entrelac if you hold the hook in the middle of the hook because of the balance point. So if you're really heavy this side, the back will want to fall down on you. So you hold your hand back and just let it stay balanced in your hand, and it'll be a lot easier on your hands as well. So you're just going to move along and collect all of your stitches going in the forward pass. So whenever the hook is collecting stitches, that's called the forward pass, and whenever we're releasing stitches off of the hook, it's called the return pass. And we go right to the very end. So the number of chain count that we had should be the same number of loops. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and 14. So that has to be the same number that you started with. And because we did not release the first loop, this is the one that it makes it the 14th, just so you know. And so now we're going to do a return pass going back. Only for the main square that I want you to do what I'm about to show you. When you do a return pass, you are going to yarn over and just pull through the first loop only. So use your finger and your thumb to kind of pull it off of the hook. It's just easier. So you yarned over and pulled through one. In Tunisian, the growth happens on this side of the hook, not this side. So that was the chain 1 as the builder. You were then going to yarn over and then pull through sets of 2 all the way back until there's 1 loop left on your hook. So you use your hand, you use the hook to pull backward, and you keep doing this all the way across. So I'm not going to count the number of stitches when it comes off in this side, but you need to stop once there's 1 loop left on the hook, just like this. And now we're going to start a forward pass, and it's this forward pass that I'm about to show you that the very ending of the forward pass has to be done correctly, or you're going to end up ruining your whole project, and I'll begin to cover that next. Whenever you do a forward pass and you're not fastening off or casting off or binding off, you were just going to go into the verticals. So you ignore the edge. Here, this is a gutter. And then the very last one is also a gutter. So it's everything in between is the number of pins. So we know that there's going to be 12 pins in between, which gives us 12 rows. So you're just going to take the hook and you're going to insert it behind the first vertical after the edge, after the gutter, and yarn over, pull through, and push down your idea. So when you see this stitch, you'll notice that it looks like a picket fence right now. But once you grab that vertical, so let's grab the next one, you grab it and you pull this through, it pushes the top of that down so it falls in between and fills it up. So when you cast off or bind off at the end of this, that's the only way that you can do it, is going in the forward pass to finish a project, and that is for Tunisian generally. So you go into the next vertical and you're going to collect all of these stitches. Okay, so you're just going to yarn over. So you're going in behind, yarn over, pull through, and push. You don't need to count. If you're confident in the way that you started, you just push and you grab it and you go. So the very last stitch matters the most. So when I started learning Tunisian, my edging on this side always looked like shit. So what I wanted to do is that I wanted to finish it off in a way, and I had an instructor show me, And then I had perfect edging all the way around this thing, because you see the center or the beginning here, it looks perfect, but also you're doing the same on the edge. So continuing all the way across. So the very last one is right here. So what you need to do is turn it towards you, and when you put the needle or hook in, you don't want to go behind one loop, you want to go into that chain that you did. So you'll have 2 loops on the hook. If you don't have the 2 loops, this side edging will never look right and will never look consistent. So you got to make sure that you're going into that and then yarning over and pulling it through. And what this is doing is it's creating a perfect edge on this side. So there should be technically 14 loops. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and 14. I don't need to count though. I'm pretty much consistent because you're going to be able to follow that up. So to do the return pass, you're going to yarn over, pull through just 1 loop only. That's your chain 1. And then you yarn over and pull through 2s all the way back. Okay, I'm going to show you the return, or sorry, the forward pass and the return one more time. And so right now, how many stitches, how many rows do you see? You see 1.5. Okay, see how it looks like a picket fence? This one here, it's only in the forward pass that it looks filled in. So you're looking at 1.5 rows complete. So if I wanted 12 rows, I need to see 11.5 rows complete and then do the cast off at the end to finish that, to get the 12th row finished. So let's begin to do the next row. To do the next row, you immediately jump to the second vertical from the edge. So this is the edge, this is your gutter. You go to the second one and you yarn over and you push. And you keep doing that, collecting those, and you'll see the magic of how the stitches fall into place and hide the gapping space. So right when you get to the edge is next, flip it towards you and insert it so that 2 strands from the edge comes onto the hook. Yarn over, pull through. You should have 14. I don't think you don't need to count every time if you believe what you're believing. So, but I am just because you're a tutorial. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and 14. So I don't want to count that every time because I'm going to be able to look at the vertical lines. You will see that this will scroll. That's normal for Tunisian. You just got to do a few more and then it'll ease off just a little bit. Your tension does matter. So to do the return pass, yarn over, just pull through 1 loop only, and then continue to yarn over, pull through 2s all the way back. Okay, so now I've got this here, so I'm all the way back. So how many rows can you see that is actually complete? If you can identify it, it'll make your life a lot easier. How many rows? You see 1 row complete, the next row, so there's 2.5. So what I want you to do is continue to forward and return pass until you can count 11.5 rows. Okay, so the half should be there. So you'll have 11 complete and 1 that looks like a picket fence. So please do that, and I'll be back in just a few moments and I'll do that off camera. I'll be right back. So here we are. This is just so it doesn't bang on the desk. So if you pull it open, you're going to notice is that you're going to be able to count. So we have 1 row, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. And you can see the last picket fence area. That's a half. So what I want to do now is start the cast off process. So you're going to notice that all of the sides look great, except for this one here, which we're about to do. So to do the cast off process, we're going to do exactly what I've been showing you, but we're going to cast off, and I cannot stress hard enough to you that when you cast off, do not be tight about it. So just going in behind the first, so you're going to do a Tunisian simple stitch, and when you pull through, just be relaxed about it and pull through that loop. So you pull through everything. So next vertical. If you're too tight in this process, these stitches are difficult, if not impossible, to get into. So just be loose about it. So this is called binding off. And so you're going to notice is that this edge will look like the other the other three edges. So you work your way across. So your hook will go back into this side of this square in the future. So if you're too tight with it, it's almost impossible. And I'm not responsible if you create some words that I probably do know that I shouldn't be saying live on camera. And so you still want to go right to the very edge and still want to collect the two that are on the edge and yarn over and through and through. And you're just going to cut the yarn now because we want to change our colors. We're just going to cut our yarn and we're just going to just pull it through that loop and just toss it to the back of the project. So your front will look like this, and as soon as you get more of these squares done, they'll stay flat on the blanket, except for the very edge, which we will do that reduction. The other side looks like garter stitching. Okay, so it's a cross between crochet and knitting. So we're going to then begin, and we're going to start rotating around this square in the next part of this tutorial. So here in the worksheet, we're about to do the orange, and we're going to start right here, and we're going to build our way out. All of the squares for round number 2 are going to be corner squares because we're still building out, and then it's not until number 3 and beyond that you'll have side squares happening in between the corners. So as you begin here, you're going to build out, but you'll end up at a dead end right here, and you'll have to fasten off at the end. So this is where the stitch count slightly changes because the gutter has already been established on the one side because we're going to do the connection spot, as we talked about at the beginning of today's tutorial. So let's begin to do this and follow this around. So with the slip knot, place that onto your Afghan hook, and you want to go right into a corner. You'll see that there's a 90-degree turn on any one. It can be any corner that you want, it doesn't matter. And you are just going to insert your hook into the corner and yarn over, pulling it through that corner plus the first. So the beginning chain count now is going to be the beginning chain count minus 1. So if I had 14 as my beginning chain count, it's only going to be 13. And this is where we start counting that. So I'll only do 13 this time. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. So I don't want to do the 14th because the 14th is actually the connection spot right here. And so we're going to work our way back and forth, and every time we hit this edge, we're going to be joining it together. So let's do our forward pass and do that connection as we go. To do the forward pass, you're going to go second chain from the hook, again the back hump of the chain, and you're going to yarn, so going in, yarning over, pushing it through, or pulling it through, and then just collect. So you will have been collecting the number of chains that you started with. So in this case, there was 13. So I will have collected 13 loops by the time I get to the next square. So the square join is going to be the 14th connection spot. It'll make sense once you get there. Because this square is no longer just solo by itself, the connection spots count as a gutter or count as an edge. So you don't hear me counting because I'm just working my way through the forward pass, and I'm going to come right to the beginning one that I started with. So there technically should be 13, let's hope. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and 13. So now the next one is going to be right here. Okay, so we're gonna, right where it's been connected, and pull through. So there should be a total count of 14 again. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and 14. So I told you in the beginning is that the next rows are not the same as the beginning. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to yarn over and start pulling it through 2s immediately. I'm not going to do the chain 1 because the connection spot is already in the right position. So I'm pulling it through 2s all the way back across. And after a few more rows of this, it'll get more stable with the connection with this guy here. Okay, and you can pull that yarn is a little loose here, so we can just pull that tighter. So to do the forward pass again, it's what you already know, so you're going to do the vertical and start collecting. So there will be 13, so it's the beginning count minus 1, so it'll be 13, and then the 14th, which is the same as the beginning count, will be the connection spot once again. So once you get the first row established, like we already have, this thing gets really easy to do. Okay, so I see this is the last vertical. Now I technically wouldn't count, but you're watching me, so it's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and 13. And so then on the edge, I move up to the next empty one on the side edge. And that would be your 14th, so yarn over and collect it. And then to return pass, don't pull over, pull through just one, pull through both the first 2, and keep doing your 2s all the way back. And this is permanently joining this square as you go. Okay, so I'll do a forward again. So you're doing it until you can see, in my case, 11.5 rows done. So in your case, it might be a different number. Somebody did email a few weeks back and they said, well, they want the squares to be bigger because it's less work. I don't think there's any difference, to be honest with you. I think it's all the same. The only difference is more visual than anything, but I don't think less work is the right explanation for that. So you get all your verticals, they'll always line up with each other. I'm not going to count because I'm going to trust myself. And then I move to the next empty one on the side, pull through, and then pull through 2s all the way back. So I'm going to join you when 11.5 rows are completed again, and then we're going to show you what to do. So we're not going to fasten off at the end of this one. We're going to keep moving around the center with the same color, and we don't need to fasten off, we just follow it through. So we'll do that and we'll continue that journey. So I've got pretty close to the top here, and I can count the number of rows completed. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and a half. So I know that I have to do my cast off process to get myself back to right here, which will then take me to the next section of this pattern. So in order to do that, we're going to do the cast off. So behind the vertical, again, be relatively easy about that. So once we get there, we're going to be in the correct position to start another corner on the main square itself. So I'm continuing to cast off, and I still have to go into the connection spot. And do you see where this is right here? Just connect right there. Okay, that's the very corner, and this will align these 2 squares better, just like that. So you're going to start another corner just like we started. So you'll chain the beginning chain count -1. So in my case, it's 13. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. And starting second chain from the hook, start doing your forward pass of collecting your stitches. So now the connection spot for this is going to be on the fresh side. And you're just going to do this all the way around every time you're getting a new fresh side started. So I don't think I've seen too many entrelac where it's not a combination of 7 loops on the hook, and I think it's just because people maybe have an aversion to an Afghan hook. So by the time I get all the way to where I started without connecting yet, there should be 13. So it's the beginning chain count minus 1. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and 13. And so right where the connection spot has happened before, you're just going to go in, yarn over, pull through, and that's my 14th, and then just start pulling it through 2s all the way back. So you've already know how to go forward and connect and return pass and then forward and connect. And so now you'll do this fresh side of the number of rows that you need. In my case, it'll be 11.5, and then I will do the bind off, and then this square then will be built out on this side right here. So you have that all going all the way around. I'll see you at this spot right here in a moment. So now have 11.5 rows done, and now I'm going to bind off once again. The key is to make sure that when you do the final stitch that goes and connects, that you're in the right position for the next square. Okay, and so now you have to do the connection, and so I'm going to move up and connect, and this will be the very start again. So in my case, I'm going to chain another 13 and then come back and start doing this square up here, and then I'll get to the end, and then I'll chain 13 and then come here, and I will meet you at the end of this round in a moment. So right now, all 4 corners have been done, and you finish here. And as I told you at the beginning, you can never finish here and carry on to your next row. So even if you wanted the white to continue, you still need to fasten off and get rid of this, because the position that you're sitting in is not ideal. If you try to slip stitch through here to get yourself to up to here, you're going to see it on the front side of the project, and it looks terrible. Okay, so what we need to do then is that we can start our next round, and we want to start with the 4 corners again. So we want to start with the corner, and then we're going to do, this is considered a side, so we're going to fill that in, and then we're back to a corner, and then a side, and more. So as this thing gets bigger, there's obviously going to be more sides. So what I want to do is get a new color, and I want to start and do the next round about. So here in the diagram, we're going to start right here, and then we're going to do our first corner, and then we're going to do a side square for the first time, and then a corner, side, and more. So obviously there's going to be more sides the more that this gets bigger. So I'm not going to waste too much of your time for the starting of this, because you're going to start off on a corner. And so what you just need to do is build a corner square on top of a corner square. So coming in, and you were going to attach your yarn for the first time, and it's the same count that you had been doing before. So it's 1, so whatever the beginning count of the chain count is minus 1. So in my case, it was 13. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. And so I'm just going to forward pass myself. So in the future, we're going to hit a side square. So it's going to be along the sides, and you're going to love those a lot better. So I found with myself is that even though I'm doing the corners now because I'm at the beginning stages, it's the side square that goes a lot faster for me, just generally speaking. So you don't have to chain the numbers at all. You just have to work with what you see. So we're going to move our way all the way back to the join. And so whatever your beginning stitch count is, that's the number of loops that we're looking for after we've connected to the original. Okay, so the number of loops on the hook right now, because we've not connected yet, should be one less than minus the beginning chain. So in my case, 13. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and 13. And then right where this one's joining, just pull through and then pull through your 2s. So it's exactly what you know. So what I want you to do is get this square completely done and also bound off. So don't finish it right here. Okay, so you're gonna do your casting off, and then you'll finish. Do not trim your yarn, and I'll meet you right here, and then we'll show you how to do a side square. So as promised, I just finished this new corner square. So now we're going to do a side square. So the side square already has 2 sides completed. So like the corner square, we have to chain a number and then come back in order to work across that chain. Here on a side square, it's already here. So you never have to chain when you go to start. So the first loop on your hook is counted as 1. So all you're just going to do, and the reason why we wanted to do a good job on the edging is that we want to use the stitch work to start picking up the stitches. So go into the next one, and you're going to collect the number of stitches you need. So you're going to collect the beginning count minus 1, and then the connection spot will be the final one. So in my case, it'll be 13 here, and then the connection spot is number 14. So we're just going to work our way across, picking it up. So when I did Entrelac a long time ago, I was way too tight on the final cast off, and so it became really almost impossible to work with it. So you want to make sure that you're kind of easy going with that, because you are going to use the stitch again. So I'm not counting at all. I'm going to wait till I get closer and see where I am for numbers. So I'm here almost there, so I'm going to count. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. I've got 2 more stitches to go, but luckily I still have 1 more on the base here. So that's 13, and then the connection spot will be right here. See this line? I want to connect with that line and pull through. So I end up with my 14 back on here, and then we'll pull through 2s all the way back. So the rest of this square is exactly like doing the corner square. The only difference is that you never started off with the chain. To begin, you started off directly on the side. And so this square is connecting not only to the square underneath it, but also to the square beside it, just like that. So what I want you to do is do the number of rows that you need to get yourself to the top. And in my case, it'll be 11.5 again, and just continue to go across. So you already know how to collect. You know how to grab the next one up just like you did before, and keep on working in that process. I'll be back in a moment. So this square is now complete, and so now I have to fasten my way off. So I got to cast off to get there. So I've already shown you how to do that. Same as before, it's just a different orientation, and meaning that it's just a different type of square. So it's the side square. So I'm going to do this. So you're going to notice at the end of the blanket, if you don't do an edging, this kind of idea rolls. So you would have noticed that if you've been practicing along with me today. And you can let me know in the comments if it rolls, and if it's rolling, that means it's right. And the reason for it is that because we never turn the project around and we always stay on the front side, the roll comes towards you because the tension is on the front of the blanket or the project, whatever you're making today. So when I go out, okay, I go back to the next one here. And because this is a corner square, I have to build up. So you can see that it's not like a side square at all. So I'm going to have to chain my 13 or whatever the beginning chain count is for you, -1, and then you build out this next square, and then you'll end up here. And because you have a V shape like this, you're going to collect the stitches like you did with this one, and you're going to collect here and then join, and then you're going to build it out, and then you'll end up here and do another side or corner square. So this would be how you would do the side squares. So I'm going to go all the way around with this, and I'll be back in a few moments, and I'm going to show you how to do the edging, because you're going to end up with edging that is all missing a section like so, and I'm going to show you how to flatten it off so that it will sit flat for you. Hopefully that's good. I'll be right back in a moment. Welcome to day 2 of filming. So I have come all the way around on this thing and I have circled, and this is the 3rd round. So I have finished off right exactly where I do not need to be to start the new round. So I want to cut this and I'm going to go around again. So you just already know what to do at this point. So you start on a corner. Okay, you start up here, you chain the number that you wanted, and then you come across, and then you come across and do the sides. So now there's 2 side squares, and then you end up back on a corner. So it's a really cool way to be able to grow this thing out. So what you're noticing though is that the ones that are kind of out like this, and this too, I guess, is curled up. So the only way to really finish this off is to fill in the spaces so that it wants to sit flat. And that's going to be the next part of today's tutorial. And it will work out no matter which size square you did, because everything has been equal to each other. And let's show you how to do that. So pick the edge of a corner square. Okay, so you can do here, here, whatever, as long as it's a corner. So you're going to just open it up and you're going to come along the edge. And remember, it's going to look like regular crochet. So you have a choice, so you can join it. Okay, and then just single crochet across or slip stitch. Okay, so we're not going to do anything special to that corner. We're just kind of maintaining it. And then what we need to do is when we get to the end of this this side here, we're going to fill in the spaces here. I do recommend that if you do a corner, to make the slight turn, it's going to be just chain 2 on a corner stitch. Sorry, 2 single crochet on a corner stitch. So I'm just going to finish the second one. So now we're going to start collecting along the edge like we did before, and it's going to be the same collection that you have been doing when you were doing this concept before on a side square. So in my case, by the time I do the connection spot, it's going to be 14 loops on the hook. So you're collecting the 13 that are along here, plus then the connection spot equals that extra one. So in my case, it's 14. And the secret is when you return pass, is that we're going to eliminate one. So we're going to do our connection, and we should have a total of 14 loops. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and 14. So pulling through 2s most of the way back. So we keep doing this until we can see 3 loops left on the hook. Okay, we see 3 loops. Pull through all 3. So by doing that, you've just now eliminated out one of the stitches by pulling it through all 3. So when you start, see how this is going into the first one? We're going to skip this one, and when you start to collect, you're going to collect this one right here. Okay, so it looks like it's the 3rd one away, but this has been included with this first. And so then you collect, and when you collect now, you're collecting one less than you did before. So if we had 14 loops on the hook, this time there will only be 13. And so we are still going to do the same number of rows. So in my case, it'll be 11 and a half rows, but you'll be able to see that by the time you keep doing this, is that you will literally be at the end of a triangle. Okay, do the next connection spot coming up, and then return pass, pulling through 2s, except for the last 3. Okay, so as soon as you see the last 3, yarn over, pull through all 3. So when you start, you're starting right here. So collect forward. And this side here will match the height of the point of this. You see how it's coming across now flat? That's what we're looking for. So what I'm going to do is I'll be back in a few moments. I'm going to do a few more rows. So you're just going to work your way and continue this. and I will be back midway through to show you what it's looking like at that point, and it will get faster and faster. So it's very much like corner to corner, how you start off on the long side and then you get shorter when you're in the center of corner to corner. In this case, you start with long and then each pass gets faster and faster because there's less stitches to work with. Okay, so as soon as you see the final three, pull through all three and carry on, and starting what appears to be the third one in, and continue that. I'll be back in a few moments. So you can see I'm more than halfway through. The edging will have beautiful stitches just in case you want to trace another border, and it's just from the corner here, it's just a portion of a turn. That's why we only did 2 single crochets into the corner. So as I continue along, I'm going to end up at this point, and then this will be a flat edge filling in this space. So keep on going and I'll be right back. I'll finish the rest of this on camera with you. And you're coming all the way. See, and it takes you right back. You have the final three, pull through all three, and that just converted it into the rectangle, or sorry, to a triangle, and now it's going to be completely sitting flat. So when you start then the next one, you start again. If it's a side square, you just come on down, you just collect the same number that you did, and then you just do the same concept to fill in the spaces just like you have here. When you finally hit a corner, just in the corner, put in 2 single crochets to turn that corner, either single crochet or slip stitch along there, and then start collecting it again and filling in your triangle spaces just like you have here. And this would be like the perfect way to have a nice ending to your concept. We hope that you've enjoyed today's tutorial. I know it was a big one, and we hope that you have a super day. I didn't even know what to say. We'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.